And welcome to another edition of the Beyond the Scoreboard show. Every Wednesday night here on the Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP, and it's a special show tonight as it is playoff football time here in Western Pennsylvania, ready to get things underway for postseason action. Just 48 hours away from now, we will be kicking things off across the county. And how about that? We have 6 of our 8 county schools in the playoffs this year. Wilmington in District 10, they get the number 1 seed in the bye. 4 of the other 5 teams have home games, and the one team that is on the road is a 9 seed in an 8-9 matchup. So great stuff all around from our county teams. We're going to break down all of the football playoff scenarios, all the games that are going to be covered this weekend in whole. But before we do, let's bring in, I'm James Dotson, let's bring in Eric Thomas. And Eric, my word, we've finally reached the postseason. We're going to have lots to talk about here tonight about the goods, the bads, the uglies, but all in all, it's playoff time. You can't ask for much more than that.
No, you certainly can't. And, congratulations to all the teams that made it. But I mean, specifically to a team like Mohawk that had to battle and really worked their tail off the last couple weeks of the season. I think we knew it was a foregone conclusion for most of these teams. It was just a matter of who was going to win a conference in, Laurel and Neshannock's case. And even Elwood, too. I mean, Elwood had to rally in that game on Friday night. So the two 2A teams that we have really worked hard to get where they're at. Both have a pretty good shot to advance on Friday, I think, anyway. And we'll see where the chips fall. There's some good matchups for some of our teams. There's some other ones where, and there's one head scratcher, and then there's a couple of other ones where I look at it and go, oh, I don't know, but we'll see how it all plays out. It should be a lot of fun here these next couple of weeks.
So before we get fully into the brackets, let's just briefly go back to the final week of the regular season and talk about some of the games across the county. Obviously, the big one for the Big 7 championship. Strong offenses between Neshannock and Laurel. I think a lot were surprised to see a 14-7 final. Didn't surprise me that you were going to see that kind of defensive struggle, though, the way those two teams always seem to go against each other, knowing tendencies and all that. Hard-hitting game, and that's what I want to focus on, too. Laurel wins 14-7. You hope everybody is healthy and maybe had an extra day of rest to get ready for playoffs this week, because that was as physical of a game as we've seen all year.
Yeah, it really was. And both defenses came out, played strong. I sort of had a feeling that, from a Laurel standpoint, I thought that their defense might have a slight edge because they played really well all year. They really proved a lot to me the week before against Southside. And, Neshannock had a couple things that they had to shake off. And, it's a different type of Neshannock defense this season. It's not a lot of the names that we're used to, but these young guys have played really well for them of late. And they're going to be. That's a really weird 8-9 game for them in single A with Leechburg. I would not want to be Leechburg in the situation that they're in on Friday night. But it really was physical, and I think we learned a lot about this Laurel team, because if Laurel is going to advance anywhere in this tournament, they're going to have to play a physical style of football. They're not going to be able to go point for point with Fort Cherry. They're defensively going to have to struggle, with Clareton if they were able to get matched up with them. They avoid Fort Cherry at least until a semi, and they would not play Clareton until a final potentially. But it's contrasting styles there. Like they're gonna get a good mix of different teams in their bracket as far as how they play. But the bottom line comes down to it. They would have to get stops against Fort Cherry somewhere in a semi, and they're gonna for sure have to go defensive toe to toe with a Clareton if they get to them. So I think they proved a lot on Friday night, that they're up to the challenge, that they're ready to get physical with just about anybody. And that game was, I don't want to call it chippy, but you sense that it was kind of good it ended when it did, because there was some things in that game that you saw it sort of like trending, and guys getting cramped and guys banged up, and just the style of play that had that game gone on for 10 minutes more, I think we might have a lot of guys that would be questionable headed into play on Friday. So I think it was good it ended when it did. And hat tip to Brian Cooper and his team, because that team just played their tail off all season long. Didn't let the Canavan setback get to them. And they're focused. I mean, they have a defense that can do it. They have a running game that can do it. They have a plethora of skill guys that can do it. just a matter of what their matchups are going to be because there are no easy outs in that single A bracket.
Yeah, and luckily for everybody, yeah, lots of bangs and bruises going on, but it sounds like everybody came out of it being able to play this week. The one maybe not is the Shannick punter Nico Scheibel, leg injury a little more serious. Not sure on his situation officially, but both coaches said overall they are about as good as you can expect after a game of that magnitude. I also want to talk real quick about Mohawk winning 3 straight to finish the year. Basically, all 3 of those were playoff games. You need to win all 3, essentially, to make it into the postseason. They did, and not only are they rewarded with a true playoff bid, Eric, but they're a home team for the postseason. What a turnaround this Warriors team has gone through. So many ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and all of a sudden, they're playing like one of the better teams right now in all of Class 2A.
Well, and we said too a couple weeks ago, if you remember, that the back end of their schedule was easier. So when they put themselves in the position that they were in, where they had to win to get, I mean, not even win to get in, but win to hope that they had a shot to get in, we knew that the back end of their schedule was going to be the easier part of it. Now, they did have to go through Western Beaver at that point, and they were able to get through them, which to me proved that this team is still capable of doing the things that some of us, me particularly, thought they would be able to do when the season started. So they're playing their best football by far. Bobby Fadden had his best game by far of the season on Friday, was rewarded by the Trib for that effort and rewarded by the Newcastle News this week for that effort. But this team just, you're right, they've kind of been playing with their hair on fire the last few weeks. That Western Beaver game, to me, big sticking point, because if they don't get through that, they're done. Simple as that. And that was the best team in that conference all year long, not just record wise, but in terms of how they played, grounding teams into a pile basically with their running game. Much different style team than what they were a season ago with Javen Peel. And this Mohawk team withstood it, and they were able to bounce back, and they were able to take advantage of some things at the tail end of their schedule. And hey, the sky's the limit for that team. I mean, they are not only getting a home game, but I think their draw isn't the worst that I've seen out of any of the teams that we have playing.
We'll look at those full brackets here momentarily. Do want to go over the unofficial numbers at the end of the regular season in terms of our county leaders for passing, rushing, and receiving. Tyler Smiley ends up being your county passing leader, 1,452 yards on the year for the first-year starter. He beats out Marino Graham by 2 yards. Just 2 yards the difference between first and second in terms of county players and their passing yards. 5, though, in the county. Check my math there. Yeah, 5 guys over 1,000 passing yards on the season. Smiley, Graham, Bobby Fadden, Lucas Santini, and Gino Mazzocca. So getting it done through the air very efficiently on the year. Your leading receiver in terms of yards and receptions is Dom Hogue, 42 catches, 575 yards. So that Elwood City connection obviously doing big things. Joey Nail finishes with a 3-touchdown performance in the end of the year. He's one of the top receivers. But Chase Lemon for Newcastle, 10 touchdowns, including both he and Joey Nail had 3 touchdown performances on Friday night. So like seeing no overpowering numbers by any stretch, but a lot of good balance when you compare then the rushing yards in there. Chase Mitchell-Tree is the only back that was over 1,000 yards rushing on the year, but you have a bunch in the 9, 8, 700 yard range as well. So I've been very impressed with the overall balance overall offensively that all of our county teams have shown here, especially the ones that have made it here into the playoffs.
Yeah, no question about it. And it just seems like there's the style of football that these teams are playing this season. Fadden really had to do a lot more than maybe he expected to, simply because of the injury situation there with Mohawk. But even guys like Lucas Santini, who had amazing seasons, offense is still balanced across the board. Gino Mazzocco, his passing numbers took a little bit of a step back this year compared to last year. Very balanced attack with Neshannock. I think they might be a little bit more run heavy than we thought they might be this season. Not really a surprise with Anthony Aiken, but
right.
Just in terms of like pure numbers. But you're right. These teams are figuring out ways to balance things out. And, football is such an ebbs and flows thing too, because it's a copycat thing, and it's also, what is, everybody knows that the quarterback's the most important position, but quarterback doesn't mean that you have to have a guy that throws for 6,000 yards in a season. Look at Fort Cherry, for instance. Matt Sieg can't throw the ball right now. So he is doing it on the ground for the most part and really doing it defensively. These teams are all figuring out ways in which to put the ball not only in their best players' hands, but they're putting the ball in every player's hands. And now instead of these run happy teams or pass happy teams, you see a lot more of the mix between these two. Coaches are riding what works in games. They're not stressing or overstressing certain spots. And I think it's made for a better product on the field, to be honest with you, all around.
Well, you mentioned the two immediately of Bobby Fadden and Lucas Santini. I mean, you're right. Fadden has had to do a little bit more, but it's just a little bit because he's not like all of a sudden getting 20, 25 carries a game. It's the next man up. Lucas Stratton has worked his way in there, doing more and more each week as a freshman running back. Just real impressed there. They haven't completely gone away from what their bread and butter is, and that's running the football, both running back and quarterback, and spreading the wealth, not having one have to run it 30 plus times every single game. And Lucas Santini, look at last week. He gets banged up near the end of the first quarter, misses a series, only throws a handful of passes the rest of the game. They felt, and rightfully so, Laurel could wear down the Lancer defensive front, and they did in that, especially in that final drive, an 80-yard touchdown drive to seal the deal at the very end of that one, Eric. So I think that too, knowing your identity and knowing, especially these senior quarterbacks, like I can do it, but I don't have to have everything put on my shoulders. I can trust my teammates around me. That tells me as much about leadership of these teams as anything else.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. But I also go back to this too. In the state of Pennsylvania, we're about to get into the worst weather of the year. You're going to have to run the football. You're going to have to play a physical style of football. Coaches, instead of trying to, if you go into a game and you say you want to throw the ball 20 times, it depends on your variation of throw. Like the team like we're going to see on Friday in Montour, they have a sophomore quarterback. They like to ease him into the game. They throw a lot of bubble screens with their quarterbacks. They let the receivers get a lot of yak after, yards after the catch. And their offense is built to kind of get him into a rhythm and then maybe take some chances after they start running the ball too. Lucero might go into Friday and say, I want Brandon Bennett to throw 15 to 16 times. I don't think he will because they've changed the way that their offense is. But that kind of becomes my point, though, is that you now start seeing teams that are gonna look at this and go, hey, maybe my guy's not the throwing the ball the best right now. Maybe he's not making his reads the best now. We need to scrap the game plan. We're going to get behind the offensive line. We're going to run the football. Laurel did it last week. Newcastle's opponents done it the last 3 weeks, basically. I think teams now tend to favor one over the other if they've got a hot hand. If they've got a clear night and it's on turf and their guy's throwing the ball well, they'll throw it 30 times. If it's not a clear night and maybe they're not on turf and maybe the weather isn't the greatest, even if you have a guy that's going to come in there and you want to throw the ball 25 times a game, I still think coaches are going to favor lining up and trying to pound the ball 40 or 50 times a game if they have to. It's that time of year. I think you're going to see them stray a little bit from that balance in the playoffs and maybe get a little, lean happy one way or another with the offense. That's just what playoff football dictates. You got to be physical. You got to run the ball. And, if you have superior talent, like we see at some of the higher classifications, if you have the talent that Pine Richland has, if you have the talent that Central Catholic has, if you have the talent that, say, like Fort Cherry or somebody has, maybe you can turn around and still be balanced. But I think most teams are going to start favoring one side over the other here in these next couple games.
And especially, the rain has already begun to fall here in Lawrence County as we record live on Wednesday night. Supposed to rain most of the day Thursday. Friday looks to be clear for game time, but you hope that the fields have drained well enough, especially the natural fields at Mohawk and Laurel, that they drain well enough that doesn't become an issue for Friday night lights. And again, the turf's going to be slick no matter what, even if you are without rain for 8 hours, unless you have the sun beating down on it, and I don't think we're going to. That's going to definitely come into play, I think, is the footing on Friday night. So let's get right into it then, Eric, with looking at these brackets. We'll pull up the Class 4A bracket first. McKeesport, I think that is the only sure thing that we knew going into this playoffs when they were going to announce the brackets was that the Port was going to be number one. There was no question there. It was a question then not only who the two wild cards were going to be, though I think just kind of the way West A with that loss to Montour just kind of played out that it was going to almost certainly be Aliquippa and Chartiers Valley just based off of seedings and head-to-head sort of thing. But how they were going to place everybody into this eight-team tournament, and there's a lot of talk, and I mean, you can basically go to any publication in and around the WPIL, and almost everybody is talking about scratching their heads when looking at this 4A tournament, especially when you look at all three teams from the Parkway on the right side or bottom half of the bracket, including the conference co-champions Newcastle and Montour playing against each other in the first round. Make it make sense, Eric Thomas.
It doesn't, and there's no way that it would. And the other thing that doesn't make any sense in this bracket too is, how does Trinity get the 2 seed? So what you're telling me, based on Trinity getting that seed, number one, you favor that you think their conference was the best of all the 4A schools, of all the 4A conferences. It was not. I'm sorry, but I know they got a big win over TJ in that, early in the midway through the season, I guess it was. The Big Six was not better than the Parkway. I'm not advocating that West Allegheny should have gotten a berth, because I think they got the 8 teams correct. I just don't think that they seeded them correctly. And it starts with, you mentioned why do we have co-champs of a conference playing in the first round of the playoffs? Like, let them decide it, in a final if they get that far. Let them decide it at least in round 2. I probably would have dropped Newcastle down to a 4 and make Trinity a 3, because I think Mars should be ahead of Trinity. I don't know how Trinity gets a 2 and Mars gets a 5. And Montour, by the way, beat Trinity as well. So I don't understand sort of the favoritism there for the Big Six. I don't think it makes any sense. I think they would have had way more chaos if they would have had West Allegheny in there. And I think part of the problem, and I don't know if anybody from this quote unquote committee would admit this, and I'm not shy about taking shots when some other media members are a little shy at going after them. I don't care. Like, they did a bad job here. And I would tell any of them that they did a terrible job here. I think they looked at that game on Friday with West Day and Montour, and they said, losers out regardless. Doesn't matter if they, if there's 4 champs in this division or whatever. They had to throw one of them out, because if they would have put 4 of them in there, how are they going to play that? They're going to put them all on one side? I mean, they put 2 of them together, so you might as well put all 4 of them on one side and let them play it out. It just doesn't make any sense to me. McKeesport, definitely a 1. I probably would have had TJ a little lower. I don't think TJ should have gotten a 4. And that's where I tell you, I think they favored the Big Six there. I think they're telling you that the Big Six was a better conference than the Parkway. I don't buy it for a minute, because West Day's got a case, even though they didn't get in, even though I think they got the 8 right. They could make a case. Should have moved Newcastle down to a 4, still giving them the home game, get them on the opposite side of the bracket. TJ could be your 5 or your 6. I would have made, if you're going to put 2 conference teams together, probably I don't put either of them together. Actually, I make Aliquippa then the 8, and I put them across the way from McKeesport, and I have that as your first round game. They completely botched this whole thing. It's a disaster.
Yeah, I'm right with you in terms of the mindset, especially when you have champions or in the bigger brackets when you have a undefeated champion and a 1-loss champion. It is very, very possible in any conference, in any classification, in any sport, that the 2 best teams are from the same conference. They deserve to have the chance to have that play out and meet in the finals if they happen to be the best 2 teams. That's just my mindset 100%. So, I mean, I would have been bummed if you had, for example, Newcastle at the 3, but like Montour at the 7, and they'd have to play in the semis. Even that would have made me, that kind of scenario would have really upset me as well, just in terms of that exact scenario, or say 2 and 3 or whatever, if you want to call them as co-champions there. But the only thing I can figure is that they thought that Mars had to be ahead of Montour because Mars beat Montour, but then Aliquippa also beat Mars, and Montour beat Aliquippa. So I know it's almost like they said, well, we got to put the wild cards at 7 and 8. And no, you didn't have to, and I think that kind of threw things off as well. But nonetheless, this is the cards that were dealt. I think Coach Mazzacco and Coach Cerro especially took it real well. At least they said all the right things when the media came running to ask in the immediate aftermath of the brackets being released. But let's talk X's and O's on this one, because the teams played, 4 weeks ago now, Eric, at Taggart
35
Stadium?
days ago.
35,
like
there 30. It is. So you got the rematch. It was a fun game if you're a Newcastle fan, for sure, but Montour is a completely different team from what we saw 3 weeks ago. That was the breakout game for Marino Graham, 5 touchdowns in that game, and they were all in the backfield against Montour, where the Canes defensively. I don't see this playing out the same way, and we were talking before coming on the air here, Eric. Montour has become a much more efficient running team than they showed, especially in that game against Newcastle, which is by far their worst rushing success on the year.
Let me throw some numbers at you here about Montour. Now, you have to remember that the final 3 games that they played, I understand one of these games in the middle is Ambridge, and that team was out of it really since about week 5. They still beat Aliquippa and they still beat West Allegheny with these numbers behind them. They're averaging 260 yards rushing a game now. They're throwing the ball less. They're running the ball almost 40 times a game for 260. They're averaging 41 points a game. They've run the ball, James, for over 200 yards 6 times this season. You know how many games last year this Montour team ran for 200 yards?
Well, they were throwing it a lot last year, so probably one.
One, and it was the playoff loss at the end of the year to Mars.
Oh, wow.
So it took them 11 games to get to a point where they ran the ball for 200 yards in a game. They've scored 20 rushing touchdowns in those games in which they've gone for over 200. They're 5-1 in those games. The one that they obviously lost to Mars earlier this year. But they've got only one game this season without a rushing touchdown, and that's against Newcastle. And that 35 yards was the lowest rushing total they've had since early in the 2024 season. So this team has completely flipped how they play this game. And a lot of the attention, is going to go to Caden Halashko, who's having himself a great year. He's over almost 1,200 yards rushing, and he's been an absolute horse the last 3 games of the year. He's gone for almost 300 yards in the last 2 games, and he's getting almost 8 a carry in the last 2 games. But Brandon Bennett, who is the sophomore quarterback, he's got 247 of his 300 yards rushing in the last 3 games. They've taken the air out of the ball and they've put it behind their running game, and they've put it behind this offensive line that Lucero said last week, we just started pushing people out of the way. And they did that against Aliquippa, where they ripped off 34 straight points. They did that against West Allegheny in a must-win situation where they ripped off 34 straight points. This team is also doing it defensively. 3 games, they've got 5 interceptions in those 3 games. They've got 3 sacks in those 3 games. They've got 6 tackles for loss in those 3 games. They don't have a lot of gaudy stats as far as their pass rush goes, kind of like in the Shannick in a way, where you watch them and they're content to sit back and let your quarterback, make a mistake. They don't really have a lot of tackles for loss. They don't have a lot of sacks on the season, but they do get pressure when they need to bring it. They try to rattle the quarterback as best they can. They certainly did it to West Allegheny. Now, West Allegheny isn't a throwing team. We know that. And you do have to put in the caveat that Aliquippa does not have Marcus Counsell and did not in that game either. But they still scored 34 unanswered points on the road at Aliquippa after Newcastle took them apart. So this team is a completely different mindset than what they were just like 5 weeks ago. They had 12 passes defended last week in the secondary. And, oh, by the way, their talented freshman Archie Collins had a pick 6 in that game that completely flipped the whole game. So this is a entirely different animal than the one that was going to be the one that played at Taggart 4 weeks ago. And I don't like the matchup for Newcastle. I still think you obviously have to favor them because they're at home. But these 2 teams, I don't necessarily think they're trending in different directions. I just think that Newcastle has been at what they are the whole year, and now Montour has taken their game to another level. A lot of it is obviously the running game, but a lot of it is how they're using their quarterback, and they've called it a work in progress all year. Progress has been pretty good for them the last couple of games.
Yeah, that's just another threat now in both the ground game and throwing the ball. And yeah, quiet 1,400 yards passing for Brandon Bennett. This is a youth game, to say the very least. You have a couple of seniors who are going to play big roles. Jaden Schaefer as part of that front 7, both sides of the football there for Newcastle. Obviously, a guy like Chase Lemon, who we just talked about, what he's meant to Newcastle in terms of the aerial attack. But yeah, it's freshman quarterback against sophomore quarterback. You have a couple of young running backs that are really doing a lot for Newcastle as well. And obviously, you mentioned Archie Collins, the freshman receiver from Montour, who had both Spartan touchdowns when they played the Canes last time. So I think it's also going to be this is going to be a ridiculously crazy jam-packed Taggart Stadium. I mean, we're talking already very much a good chance of being close to standing room only at Taggart Stadium, from the sounds of things. So with that in mind, too, what team, what young quarterback can do their best to not be rattled and make the plays when they matter the most?
Well, I think in that regard, I think it does favor Marino Graham, and it's simply because, like we've heard Freddie Mazzocco talk about this all year, where he'll tell you that Graham does not make the same mistake twice. And I know he's had a couple of iffy moments against West Allegheny. It seems like he got that out of his system. This kid is not, it's that old adage. I hate when people say it, but I'm going to use it now. He's not a freshman anymore. Mm-hmm. He's got 10 games under his belt. The first game he was really good. He was good for a first game. Very efficient throwing the football, led that drive to start the third quarter against Penn Hills in the opener. And then he just took off after that. I mean, really, since about week 3, he's just taken complete control of this offense and made it his. And you can tell everybody loves playing around him. Everybody looks at him. He's a leader on this team. And I don't think the moment gets too big for him. I think that there's, athletes are funny because early in the career, I don't think they quite understand what the moment is. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. Sometimes they can just go out there and play free and not care. And, hey, it's the first time I'm doing this. Let's have fun. Let's go do it. And then if they don't have success in that game and they come back in the same moment the next year, the pressure starts to mount a little bit. And maybe they don't have a good time handling this. And, I remember the state's all-time leading passer, Stone Saunders, Bishop McDevitt. They won a state title last year against Roman Catholic. He played in the state title game as a freshman against Aliquippa, that really good Aliquippa team that had Cam Lindsey and Tyke Hayes and all those dudes that Quippa had for the last 4 years. And they should have won that game. He should have bookended his career with 2 state titles. And the moment got a little too big for him in some spots. And they only lost the game by 7. It never felt like they were going to win it. And you could tell he had all the talent in the world. That's the first time I actually saw him live. And you could tell he had all the talent in the world and was going to be a phenomenal quarterback at this level. And then you watch him last year when they play Roman Catholic, a team that's equally as athletic as that Aliquippa team. I don't think is good, but equally as athletic at a higher level at 5A instead of 4A. And he had he carved them up. And he does have 2 state titles now because they did come back and they beat Aliquippa. He went through the moment one time. He got through it. He came back the next time against Aliquippa and absolutely lit them up. Didn't get there the third year because, again, moment got a little bit too big for him. They had some issues on their offensive line and things, and a lot of the weight of the world was on his shoulders. And then he comes back last year like gangbusters and just basically throws Roman Catholic off the field himself. Athletes are funny that way. I think Graham is in that spot now where it doesn't really matter. Like, he doesn't fully grasp it. And it's what he does, not grasping it, that determines how this game is going to go. So, if he plays free, doesn't, the spotlight, the crowd, the community, everybody wants this team to succeed. Everybody wants this team to go far. Everybody wants this team to get to a WPIL final, if not beyond. And that's a lot for this kid to hear. But I don't think he gets rattled by it, and that is huge. I don't know that Brandon Bennett gets rattled by it, but I also think Brandon Bennett's season's been a little bit more of a roller coaster. They've asked him to step in and do a lot. He did a lot of good things in the season, but he also had a horrible game against Newcastle. He has a little bit more pressure on him because he wants to make amends for that. But then his team changed the strategy a little bit on how they do things. So now maybe not as much as on his shoulders. So maybe he plays a little bit more free than what he did the first time these two teams met. I don't know. I just what I've seen out of Marino Graham, I just think he does not care what the moment is. I think he wants that attention. I think he wants that spotlight on him. I think he wants the ball in his hands. And he's going to tell his team, look, man, we're going to win this or we're not. And I'm going to be the one that's responsible for it. And I'm going to get us there. And if I can't get us there, I'm damn sure going to try to carry us there. So this team has him and they can rally behind that. And I just, a long-winded answer in a way of saying, I think right now it favors Graham as far as the moment goes.
To put a bow on it, I mean, look at last week. Marino Graham, all year, he's been the rushing machine. Blackhawk took the running game away from Newcastle. No problem. He goes and throws for 3 touchdowns, puts up gaudy numbers through the air. I think he only finished with like 14 rushing yards, and no big deal. It was 14 carries for 4 yards when you accounted for sack yardage and such. So I think that's also a big progression of you take away part of the game, I can still do something else with it. But in the end, for both these quarterbacks and for the teams as a whole, which can be the better goldfish? You got to have the 6-second memory. You can't be thinking about what happened a month ago, and you certainly can't be thinking about what happened on the previous play. You got to keep looking forward. I think whatever team does that better is the team that's going to end up being the successful one there on Friday night. We will have the call, Eric Thomas and Tim Continenza. That is a video broadcast only on NFHS Network, the paid subscription. That's the only way to be able to do that game. We will have a free audio feed, though, of the game on all of our social media platforms and on YouTube as well for that one on Friday night. Before we get off of Class 4A, Eric, I wanted to mention just the other game I'm really watching is, naturally the 4-5 game between TJ and Mars, because just of the two main running backs you're going to hear over and over and over again. I mean, you got Tyler Eber for TJ. How about 249 rushes on the year for Tyler Eber? And you look at Mars, they're a little more balanced, but you also have Aiden Yoakum, who's over 200 carries and is by far, I think he's got more than twice as many carries as the rest of the team combined for the Planets as well. So the Yoakum and Eber show is going to be a fantastic one. Both teams going at each other with what they do best, ground and pound.
Yeah, and Keemon Spell apparently is healthy, and he's had a lot of attention, obviously, because of the Penn State decommit too. But as he goes, McKeesport's going to go. I think the coaching matchup in that 4-5 game, Bill Chirpak and Eric Kasperowitz, come on. Like that's as good as it gets as far as coaches in the first round. And it's a shame that one of those guys is going to have to go home Friday. And I don't really have a lean one way or another there. I think TJ is kind of, I think they're, number one, I believe they're fortunate that the committee gave them a 4 seat so they get the home game. But 2, it's a TJ team that a lot of people, I believe, thought it was either going to be them or McKeesport. But they're going to have a chance if they meet in the semifinals to do what they think they should be doing this year anyway. They can't look past this. But that coaching matchup in that 4-5 is 100% as good as it gets.
Yeah, in 4A in general, you throw in a Lucero, you throw in a Mike Warfield that have all won championships. Obviously, we know what Fred Mazzacco has done, kind of on the precipice of making it to that elite level as well. If he can get a team to a championship, that's just incredible. The names of those coaches, the longtime head coaches there at those storied programs. All those games are on Friday night, and there will be coverage one way or another, video, audio, one way or another for all 4 games in the Class 4A tournament on Friday night. Let's jump down to Class 2A. 3 first-round byes for the 3 conference champions, but I think the biggest surprise it was not how the bracket came out, really, but the surprise of Steel Valley coming out of nowhere and defeating what was thought to be practically invincible South Allegheny, the way they had played all year, at least it felt that way, Eric. And now all of a sudden it's Steel Valley with the bye and South Allegheny having to play this opening weekend against Waynesburg.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people thought South Allegheny was the team to beat in 2A. And obviously, Mr. Barksdale has decided to tell people that they can hold off on that thought for 1 second. If there is a favorite in this bracket, I still do not think that there is a bona fide favorite in 2A. It would have to be 100%. It would have to be Steel Valley. I just don't know. You want mistake-free football, you want physical football, and you, in some ways, you kind of want conservative football in the playoffs. They can do all that, and Barksdale's been fantastic. There's really, I look at this bracket. I don't think that there is a team on it that can't win this tournament. Mm-hmm. And I honestly mean that. Elwood City could get hot. You never know. Their defense has played good. Western Beaver could run people into the ground. Riverside, they've got potential. We've seen it a couple times this season from them, and they just haven't been able to put it all together, for full 48 minutes the whole season. South Allegheny's got maybe the most electric player on offense. Mohawk might be the hottest team right now. And Seton LaSalle might have the best defense of the whole thing. So there's not a team in this bracket that can't put this thing together and go win this.
Yeah, that 5-12 game, especially Washington and Beaver Falls, I think is going to be one that people are eyeing. Again, two very storied programs meeting in the first round in a dangerous 5-12 matchup. Let's start, though, talking about that red-hot Mohawk team in the 8-9 game hosting Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. I mean, when you look at Olsh, they're, again, a team that is yeah, we don't know what to expect, I think, because they've had a multitude of quarterbacks over the course of the year. The running game has been pretty, balanced in terms of who's getting the bulk of the carries. They've won a lot of Wildcat these last couple of weeks, is trying to figure out what their offense is going to be most efficient. And they got a win that they needed. They defeated Keystone Oaks in a Week 9 non-conference game that basically allowed them not only to, for sure, make it into the postseason, but to get a pretty solid seed here as the number 9.
Yeah, and they present some challenges for Mohawk. Right now Mohawk's going to have, it's going to be hard to disagree with this. They're going to have the best player on the field in Fadden. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where coaches maybe tend to scrap what they want to do as far as like a script or anything like that and just, ride a hot hand if they have it. I wouldn't be stunned if Bobby Fadden runs the ball more in the postseason. I wouldn't be stunned if he tries to air it out like he did against Riverside because he had his best game throwing the football all year. Actually had one of his best games running the ball too, even though he only had 52 yards in that game. But man, he was fantastic. James, you and I have talked about this behind the scenes a little bit. And with Fadden, it's a lot of this, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, 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 kind of ebbs and flows with him as a quarterback. I love him as a player. I think he's one of my favorite that I've been lucky enough to cover the couple of years I've been with you guys. But his completion percentage hasn't been great in a lot of games. And, you worried last year a little bit about him trying to do too much and having to cut down on the interceptions this year and things like that. How about the last 4 games that they all pretty much had to win? Let's even throw the New Brighton game out because they lose that game. He was 9 of 14 in that game throwing the football. These are really since the end of September. He completed 69% against Beaver Falls. He completed 50 against Union. He completed 64% against New Brighton, 54% against Western Beaver. Didn't have to do a whole lot in that game. How about 88% against Freedom and 83% against Riverside? This kid's playing the best football of his life right now. And oh, by the way, in that stretch, again, if you want to throw out New Brighton, how about 6 touchdowns and 1 pick in the last 3 games? So if he's had to cut down on the turnovers, and he hadn't thrown a lot of them this year anyway, he's only thrown 6 of them, and I think his reads and his decision making has been a little bit better at the quarterback spot than it was a year ago. He's just a natural athlete, but having to win these games and putting the ball in his hands, and then if you want to take it a step further and talk about his running too, the last couple of games, he's had 36 carries, 47 carries in the last 4 games. So they're leaning on him a little bit more. And in that stretch, he's also got 4 rushing touchdowns. Hadn't cracked 100 yards, doesn't have to. But, in 3 of those games, getting almost 5 a carry. Union, he averaged almost 11 a carry. So when they want to move the football, I know that, Lucas Stratton has played a lot better filling in for his brother. But when they want to move the football, they still keep it in his hands. And I would not be stunned if he has some of these straight dual threat type of games in this tournament. He's going to be the best player on the field for Mohawk every single down that they have the football.
The big part that has really been encouraging to me is, yes, that completion percentage, but it's because it's quick passes, it's high percentage passes to begin with, and I think that's also opened things up for the running game for both him and Lucas Stratton. And again, I'm looking at the numbers of the rushing attempts. 11 for Fadden last week versus 23 for Stratton. 18 for Stratton, 10 for Fadden the week before. 22 and 15 Stratton to Fadden. So it's still Stratton's backfield first, and he has gotten to the point, and that offensive line has gotten into a rhythm to the point that you cannot focus on taking away Bobby Fadden's legs because he's going to give it to the freshman, and the back is just going to fly and do what he does best. And it's only a matter of time before they do collapse on Stratton, and that's when Bobby pulls it, and that's when he's going to make a big run. I think you might see him finally break a real long one in this game against Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. And that's, I think, more important than anything is just maintain your game script, your game flow that has been so efficient for Mohawk over the course of these last 3 or 4 weeks, because they've shown even in their losses, Eric. Let's talk about that real quick. Losses by 3 to New Brighton, a loss by 2 to Beaver Falls, and a loss by 6 on essentially the last play of the game against Elwood City. Those are your 3 conference losses by a combined, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 points, basically by a combined 90 seconds. And you're talking about Mohawk being an undefeated conference champion. This is a very scary 8 seed if they play Mohawk football, which they have been for sure in these last 3 weeks.
Well, and don't forget Joey Nail's been a big factor
Oh,
for
yes.
them too when they want to throw the football. I mean, he's really come into his own too this season. We've been saying that they needed a number 1 wide receiver. I even thought at one point maybe like having Fadden at the quarterback spot and not developing somebody else and taking away your best wide receiver might have been a bit of a mistake. I'm wrong about that now because for sure, Joey Nail's become a big time threat for this offense too. They rely more on Lucas Stratton. I think that confidence that the coaching staff and the rest of the team have put in him. We can say what we want about the record. There's good leadership there in this team, led by guys like Fadden, led by guys like Nail. They have a taste of state tournament experience. I can't stress enough, even though it's a different sport, like even with Newcastle, Chase Lemon, Kai Cox, Damian Harrison, Jaden Schaefer, Quaylen Davis, all these guys playing basketball and getting to a championship game and getting to the state tournament, that carries over in high school sports. That snowballs in every sport that you play. And Mohawk's got that too. I mean, they've competed, they've been a competitor for WPIL title. They've made it to the state quarterfinals in basketball. That kind of breeds success. And like when Lucas Stratton might be struggling, he can look at a guy like Bobby Fadden and say like, hey, what did you do to get to this point? Or, what was it like being in that situation? And Fadden can give him the experience and just instill more confidence in him. And that's helped this offense tremendously. And Stratton's really become a nice punch for this team. And he and his brother are going to be a formidable duo next year too for this team. They're going to need it because they're going to have to rebuild, but those two are going to be a good building block for this team.
Again, we'll have coverage of that one from beautiful Bessemer, Pennsylvania, the 8-9 game between Mohawk and Olsh. That is also NFHS video only. There is a free audio stream as well, as always, for all of our playoff games at lcsportsnet.com on our YouTube page. Big thanks to the guys at Westminster College. We have Ben Kelly and Tom Rook who will be on the call for that one, helping us out for the opening round game between the Warriors and the Chargers. The other game in the county, this one will be a free video broadcast only on Elwood City Sports ECS with Thad Sturgeon and Brad Winhurst as the 6 seed Elwood City Wolverines host the 11 seed Keystone Oaks. Talk about Keystone Oaks first real quick, Eric. A great dual threat quarterback. I mean, this is about as even as you can get. Owen Gerhart, 724 passing yards, 727 rushing yards, 17 total touchdowns. He's the straw that stirs the drink. They gave Mohawk all they could handle last year in the opening round game. They're not an easy out coming into Helling Stadium.
No, they aren't. And that's going to be an interesting matchup defensively in this game. What do you choose to stop? What are you going to try to stop? Do you overcommit? Do you oversell? There's going to be some decisions made defensively in that game that could flip it one way or another. And I think setting a tone for either of these two teams one way or another early in this game is going to be what kind of decides this. But lot of chess matches early in these games and kind of feeling each other out. And that's another reason why I sort of don't like the Newcastle matchup. Going back to that for a second, simply because you've already played this team. If you win, what do you gain by beating a team for the second time in a year? I mean, I understand you advance in the playoffs, but to me, I would want my team to have a challenge of facing somebody that they have not seen this year. And I think that brings out the best in coaches. It brings out the best in scheming, and players I think also want a little bit fresher of a take, as far as their offense and their schemes and everything goes. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that that defense, a play early on, set the tempo a little bit one way or another, and this one is probably what's going to flip the script here for either team.
Real quick, that Mohawk-Olsh matchup is the first time they've ever played. It's actually funny, Newcastle and Montour, obviously being conference mates, they've played each other more than any other playoff opponents have here across all the classifications, but they actually met in the postseason just 8 years ago, I think it was 2017. Yeah, 8 years ago. So interesting that one kind of plays out as well. Elwood City and Keystone Oaks have played a few times. but not in the last 25 years. Let's talk about this Elwood City team. Again, Tyler Smiley down the stretch, all of a sudden becoming a big time passer. They struggled throwing the ball early in the year, but again, opening up the pass game has actually made things easier for Richard Curtin and Julian Frisk, and those two combined for nearly 1,400 rushing yards on the season to go with Tyler Smiley's 1,400 passing yards. There's the balance that you're looking for, and shocker, Dan Bradley's getting it done.
Yeah, and they figured out how to work this personnel, and it wasn't just a one guy running the football, dominant, heavy running attack for this team this season. They've had to try to almost do what Laurel's done, and that's try to get as many guys involved as they can, and work on it from that regard. Smiley's gotten a lot better. I still like their defense a lot. I still think they have plenty of guys defensively who can make plays. They're going to need to do that early in this game. Again, this is a situation where I think defense can kind of set the tempo. I think Elwood, and having not seen them in person this year, but watching them a little bit on film, they seem to me like a team that really needs that defense to set the tone first. And I don't mean that in a way where the offense can't come back out and do it, but that just seems to be their blueprint. They kind of play like a defensive team. Then the offense sort of settles in after that, and they feel a little bit more comfortable taking some chances or trying to exploit what other teams do. But they've just been a stout defensive team all year long, and no reason to think that's not going to continue here in the playoffs. They've got a defense that can win games. Now, they get through this in round one, and Steel Valley's awaiting them. That's going to be a heck of a challenge. But again, defense, run the football, play conservative in some regards. Do not put your quarterback in any bad positions. Dan Bradley knows what buttons to press. And again, a guy who's coached in another sport but coached in a state tournament understands what it does to, what it means to prepare for the bigger games. I think that carries over to these guys, and they've played great football. You could have told me this year that this team was going to go 500. You could have told me they were going to go 4-6, and you could have told me they were going to go 10-0 again, and I would have said yes to every one of them. They were hard to figure out, but they have figured it out, and they've got the right formula working for them right now. That was a great winning it in situation for them against a rival. And I think that helps them too. I think playing that game the final week of the season, knowing you had to win it against your arch rival, I think that helps them a lot going forward too.
And look at those two wide receivers, Dom Hogan, Daylon Curry. I mean, they're basically going to go down as basically in all receiving numbers. They're going to be number 2 and number 3 all time. They're both now over 1,000 receiving yards, double-digit receiving touchdowns, 83 and 84 catches respectively for those two guys. Just really, really big performers on the outside as weapons there for Tyler Smiley. Again, you can watch that on Elwood City Sports with Brad Winhurst and Thad Sturgeon there on the call. Any other games you want to look at here? I want to mention with Riverside, give a shout out to Mason Haller, 1,000-yard rusher for the Panthers. They have a long road trip there, but I think a very winnable game against Apollo Ridge in that 7-10 matchup.
Yeah, and they've got pieces too. We saw them against the Union struggle a little bit. They struggled against Laurel big time too, but they've been able to bounce back. They definitely have pieces that can make some plays. That's not as bad of a team as their record indicates. This bracket, I say like none of these teams can, all these teams can win the thing, but I don't know that I would pick Riverside to be a team that wins it. But I also, I don't know that I wouldn't pick them to upset somebody either. I mean, this whole thing could be nuts. Like this bracket could be busted so fast. I think we're going to get some chalk in this first round, but going forward, if Mohawk wins, they get number 1 seat in LaSalle. Seat in LaSalle's defense is great. I wouldn't worry too much about playing them, even though they've been very good. Steel Valley would be the one that I would worry about the most out of any of these teams. Any one of these things can possibly happen. I mean, Beaver Falls, Washington. You mentioned it earlier, the 5-12 game. Could easily see Beaver Falls winning that game. I don't think that's a lock by any stretch of the imagination that they can't go into Washington and win that game. We'll see. I mean, this 2A, throw a dart. I mean, it's been like that all year, but now you really got to fight. You got to zero in on something and throw it at that board because any one of these teams can quite literally go win this thing.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago that Riverside as a 14 seed made it all the way to the semifinals. It was even more recently that Beaver Falls as a 10 seed won it all. So it truly
different
is.
Team. That was not a 10 seed though. That team was
true.
not a 10 seed at all. That was as bad of a seed as a team like that could have gotten. I said to you, I remember saying to you midway through that season 2 years ago, I thought they were going to win the WPIL title. You could just tell there was something about that team.
Yeah, and they got healthy at the right time, the right things happening, team getting better. There's a lot of parallels you can draw to a team like a Mohawk or an Elwood City, teams that have progressively just gotten a little bit better over the course of the year. That's why it wouldn't surprise us if a team playing on this opening weekend makes a run and makes it all the way there to Acrisure. Jump down yet again here to Class 1A in the WPIAL. A full 16-team bracket here in the 1A tournament, and I think no real surprise of who the top four teams were when the brackets came out. I do like in this one that Bishop Canavan is opposite of Fort Cherry. It's very possible those are the top two teams in the end out of this Class 1A tournament, and they're from the same conference. They have a chance to meet in the finals. I think the committee got those correct. I think this might be the only bracket I'm not entirely sure about. Did they get the correct teams into the playoffs? 5A as well, that's another story we'll talk about later. But overall, I think that this bracket may be the best put together. Again, I'm not quite sure about the last couple teams that ended up making it into the dance, but overall, a well put together bracket with a couple of intriguing potential second round matchups to lick your lips.
Yeah, it is. And, you look at round two potentially with Neshannock and Fort Cherry. Does Neshannock have the firepower to stay with them offensively? Can they get stops defensively? We know they've had problems against the run. Laurel, Jefferson, Morgan, again, coming off a physical game against a rival, winning a conference title, that's very important to these kids. Can they get refocused? And can they keep churning forward? I mean, Laurel to get to the quarterfinals and then potentially play Southside again on a neutral site. And that's the other team that I find really interesting in this side of the bracket too, is Southside, because what's their mindset? They come off a crushing loss to Laurel after they demolished Neshannock. They think they're right in the thick of things. They do what they need to do last week, and then Laurel just goes and wins the conference anyway. So I just kind of wonder what their mindset is right there. That's a dangerous 5 seed. Vanessa and Clareton, don't even need to waste any verbs on that because that game's over already. Bentworth, Jeanette, interesting there too. Like Jeanette last year was sort of the surprise team when they snuck up on Neshannock, but I think they might be able to squeak through that and get to a Clareton in round two, but we'll see. Canavan, Canavan to me, Clareton, if they win this thing, if they have to go through Canavan and then potentially Fort Cherry to win this, they're going to earn it, and that's a crowning achievement for a program that you could tell 2-3 years ago was starting to build this thing up. I don't know right now. I probably favor Clareton. I think I favor Clareton just because their defense has been lights out, 8 shutouts in a row. I understand the conference is not great, and it's a different animal when you get into Fort Cherry, and those kids know how to win. Remember we talked just about 15 minutes ago about the moment. Fort Cherry doesn't care about that stuff now. Those guys are all seniors. They've all been there, done that. Sieg doesn't care about it. He's played in a million of these big games. He's not worried about the spotlight and all that. He just goes and plays football. That's a big difference in that game. Clareton, I think, with the chip on their shoulder is a problem. And I really want to see, I want to see Laurel get through and get Southside again. And I'd like to see Neshannock really, really hang with Fort Cherry. From a Neshannock standpoint, though, James, get out of the first round, please, because that's been the big struggle the last couple of years, and you've had those games on your home turf, and you've not been able to do it. Get out of that first round. We said that earlier this year. MO, get out of the first round. They've got a golden opportunity to do that on Friday.
Well, let's talk about that game first then as we break down our county games. Leechburg, the 8 seed, Neshannock, the 9 seed. Both teams coming off of losses in the final week of the season. Is it maybe a blessing in disguise, though? I mean, Neshannock, again, the nightmare of the home playoff loss from last year. Is it maybe a little blessing in disguise that you're getting on the bus for this first round game?
I think it is, and see that there again is that situation with a team that does the moment kind of consume them a little too much, and there a lot of pressure on that team to go win a home playoff game. And they didn't do it the last 2 years. And last year was definitely the team. Last year was a team that, had they won that game, I think they could have gone on a pretty decent run in that bracket, the way they were built with all that experience. And they couldn't do it. And maybe they need to get out of it. Maybe they need to change the scenery. Maybe they need to switch, how they sit on the bus or something. Just get a little bit different juju on that team to assist them in any way possible. Going on the road, I think, is going to be a little bit healthier for them. They can kind of feel like they play with a chip on their shoulder, like they didn't earn anything yet. They didn't get their conference title. They were picked apart by a rival in Southside. New chapter for them. Just get on the bus, go play. You're going to have to get on that bus next week anyway. If you win this game against the number one seed, can't look ahead to it. But it's all traveling from this point on. This team can kind of refocus and hopefully for their sake they can get a first round win because that program needs it right now.
Yeah, for sure. And one first interesting factoid with these two teams: both of them only played 9 games this year on the field, not by their choice. Leechburg with a forfeit victory over Springdale back on the 26th of September. That's 2 weeks after the Shannick had their forfeit win against Rochester. So just an interesting little tidbit there. But I'm looking at this Leechburg team, and they're the ones that, if there's a team in this bracket trending in the wrong direction, it's probably Leechburg. They finished second in the conference, but in the last 3 weeks, a loss to Clairton, a win against 3-win Brentwood, and then a bad loss, 36-7 last week to Greensburg Central Catholic. They're averaging 42 points allowed in the last 3 weeks, giving up 48, 41, and 36 in those last 3 weeks for the Blue Devils. They still get a home game and a chance to right the ship in the playoffs, but it's just interesting that you have Leechburg playing these high-scoring games and then the Shannick coming off of one of the best defensive struggles we've seen on the year. This could be a game. I think it's going to be more high-scoring, especially the way Leechburg's defense has kind of struggled these last 3 weeks. Can the Shannick exploit it, especially in the ground game?
Yeah, and I'm just going to tell you, having been there myself when they played Clairton a couple of years ago, that's not an easy place to go to. It's kind of a grimy field.
Yeah.
It's an old school press box. You're going to sit on the roof if you're calling the game.
Thanks.
And yeah, and you're going to have to climb a ladder to get up there to do it. It almost feels like you're in like a shed when you go up in that box. It's right smack in the middle of a neighborhood. It's got a different vibe to it, and you sort of need to play with that devil may care type attitude like Clairton did when they went in there. And it's not it's not a pretty situation to go there. It is a old school, again, kind of grimy, just it's a single A football team. Like it almost looks like it should be like right out of All the Right Moves, in Johnstown, that kind of thing, like the Ampipe team. Like it just kind of has that grittiness to it. And that can mess with you a little bit. I mean, it really can. It's going to be a little uncomfortable there for both, for any visiting team. But the Shannick just has to go in there and handle business and, not worry about what's happened the last 2 years. Again, it's a different path. It's a different story that they can write. And they got a chance to, again, they really got a chance to put this bracket in an uproar. A lot of people thought they were the favorite in the Big Seven. They didn't win it. They have a chance to still prove that they're the best single A team if they can win these 4 games.
Talk about Anthony Aiken real quick as the spearhead of that ground game, and do we see? We've seen Gino Mazzocco over the course of the year be used a little more defensively as necessary. He's getting better and better offensively as the year goes along as well. But those two as a 1-2 punch, I think this is their time to shine.
Yeah, it really is, and he is so explosive and just can change the game in a heartbeat. And he's got the breakaway speed. He runs with a purpose. He can catch the ball if you need him to. He's an excellent defender. He's had a great season. This really has kind of become his team. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but they just seem like they've kind of changed their attitude a little bit. And almost like they wanted to run the ball more to prove to people that they A, can, but B, also retool that offensive line. I don't think a lot of people understand what that offensive line's gone through this year. So for him to have a lot of the him and Gino both, to have the rushing numbers that they do, and Edward to have the rushing numbers he does, that's really a testament to what those kids up front have done on that offensive line, because this team, I think that they've gone through like 6 different combinations of offensive line because of injuries, and they already had to replace a handful of guys up front. I think, 3/5 of it needed replaced, and the 2 guys who are back are young, so you're counting on them to be the veterans on this team and grow up fast. Just it hasn't been what they wanted up front, and yet their running game is as good as it's been. So those kids have really worked hard up front to pave the way for him, and all he really needs is a crack, and he can take it to the house. Now, He struggled last week against Laurel. Everybody does when they run the football. We know that. Southside couldn't run the football against them, and they came off a 445-yard performance the week before. So that's a tough team to kind of cut your teeth against. But this O-line, man, they've now kind of taken their game to another level, and they've been able to figure that out. And they've had to rely on some young kids to do good things up front for that team.
Yeah, I think senior center Dante Canciello, I believe he's the only one who has been at the same position all year long. So again, a lot of moving parts, whether just moving position on the line or rotating new guys in and out over the course of the year. But yeah, Anthony Aiken has still been the main beneficiary of consistent play, consistent enough play on that O line. 5 out of 9 games he's over the century mark. I expect a big game for all three of those backs, for Aiken, Mazzocco, Edworthy, the double E's, and then with Gino in there as well. I think those three will be the main focus in getting the ground game going for Neshannock early and often. We have been approved for a free video broadcast for that one, Eric, so we will have coverage in the usual ways, video-wise on YouTube, Facebook Live, streaming on X as well, for that contest there at Leechburg. And everybody can see for free the wonderful place it will be on top of the press box in 35 to 40 degree weather. So big thanks to that. It'll be me and Tyler Aaron on the call for that one there from Veterans Memorial Stadium in Leechburg. The other game, the next one right down on the bracket, the 4-13 matchup. This one is an audio-only broadcast. No video stream for us for this one. We'll just leave it at that. No video stream for this game for Lawrence County SportsNet. Laurel hosting Jefferson Morgan. And you said it a minute ago, Eric, about needing to get over that crazy, awesome end-of-year rivalry matchup for a conference championship and get right back into it. Because look at last year. Laurel had a strong end of the year, lost their final game, maybe a little of energy expended, the air out of the proverbial balloon, and then they go and get upset at home against California. Now you got another Tri-County South team making the long trip up to Lawrence County. You can't have a repeat effort of what you saw last year against the Trojans. Laurel's got to come up firing on all cylinders here against this Rockets team.
Yeah, and I think they will. I believe that this team is refocused. They seem like they're playing with a different purpose, and I got the sense hearing from Brian Cooper last week after the game when you talked to him that this team doesn't feel like they're done, and that's important for them. They have proven so many people wrong and done so many good things this year that they are, I understand people who watch them and say like, yeah, okay, but let's get a signature performance. But you just got 2 of them in a row, so they're ready to go. I firmly believe this too. The matchups, look at their matchups in this bracket. They can beat Jefferson Morgan, which by the way, you should watch us do that on Friday, but you can't. And they should, if they play Southside again. I still think that they're the favorite in that game. This team has the best path of anybody that we have to get to a semifinal. And I don't know that you could have asked for anything more. I mean, you're looking at it going, well, there are 4 because Canavan beat them head to head. They got that right. They got the top 2 seeds right, and they got the 3 and the 4 correct in this bracket. But then look at Canavan's path if they beat Greensburg Central. Cal's a really good team. You get through Cal, you probably have to go through Clareton just to get to the final to play Fort Cherry potentially. Laurel, on the other hand, again, Morgan, possibly Southside in a rematch. Maybe, and I think we can all assume Fort Cherry's the favorite, but maybe, just maybe, Neshannock shows enough firepower and you get your conference rival in a rematch in a semifinal too. Like, I don't think you could have asked for a better path. They got the best draw of any 4 seed, of any quote-unquote high seed or top 4 seed. They got the best one, I think, of anybody.
Think we'd be allowed to do that game?
Who knows? The people that make decisions, who knows?
Yeah. But, so here's what I, again, want to say. We talked about it in the Parkway Conference. This one, too, with Class 1A, you got all 3 teams that are in the playoffs from the Big 7 Conference all on the same side of the bracket.
Yeah, ridiculous.
It makes me shake my head. And, I get it that, Laurel and Shannock on the same side, I could live with that. To me, California and Southside should have been switched when these brackets came out, personally. You mentioned, yeah, California, a real good team, a conference champion. It would have made sense if California was the 5, Southside was the 6, in my mind. But again, that's just me being, I don't know, maybe I'm being a little too nitpicky. But at the same time, Southside, yeah, I know Laurel took control of them earlier in the year, just a couple of weeks ago now. But at the same time, Southside is a team that it doesn't matter if they're a 1 seed, a 2 seed, or a 14 seed. You don't want to play them because of how efficiently they run the football with that wing T offense. So should Laurel get through Jefferson Morgan and Southside takes care of business in their game as well, you could end up running into that scenario. But hopefully we're talking about that here when we get to the games a week from now. But let's talk about this Jefferson Morgan opponent for the Spartans here real quick of what people can be seeing. John Woodward, one of the main guys you're going to be talking about mainly because of what he does on the ground. Declan Diet is the guy. He's thrown it a few times, a little wildcat action, leading receiver. He's got a big chunk of touchdowns on the year as well. Don't sleep on this Jefferson Morgan team. They are, again, efficient at what they do. I think it's more of, I think Jefferson Morgan's going to score a couple touchdowns in this game for sure. It's can they stop Laurel on their side of the ball, because JM has given up a fair number of points in that Tri-County South.
Yeah, and then it comes down to can they get any kind of penetration against that offensive line for Laurel, which is so good. All those guys returning. Kevin Mahoney's playing at an all-state level. Everybody really is playing at an all-state level. And their defense, James, I think it's just too much for Jefferson Morgan to handle. I agree that they will get a couple of touchdowns on the board. I don't think it's going to be enough. If you told me that they would score 2, definitely not going to be enough. This Laurel defense is going to get hungry. They'll force the turnover. They will come up with a big play. And if they need to, they showed last week that they can take the air out of the ball and they can pound a team in the ground if they want to. And that to me is a really dangerous thing. We didn't really see them play as basic an offense in all the time that we've seen them this year like they did last Friday. And they showed that if they need to do it, they will just line up and they will pound you into the ground. And I think that makes it a very difficult ask for this Jefferson Morgan team to hang with that.
Yeah, watch for Deacon, because he's got, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games that he's got 3 or more touchdowns on it. So he's the main straw that stirs the drink there for the Rockets. But how about Laurel? I mean, obviously, you saw the big game defensively all around, but 7 sacks total in that game. I think it's something that kind of flew under the radar until you looked at the stat sheet. They were all in the backfield all game, but I didn't realize it was 7 sacks in that game, led by Mr. Medved there, getting the job done for that Laurel defensive front. These seniors, and then Medved and underclassmen, but these seniors have been chomping at the bit for this opportunity. Gotten better and better over these last 3 years. You're going to have so many individual record holders at the end of this. This is the best Laurel opportunity to make a big run, I think, honestly, probably since their championship run back in 1980.
Yeah, I agree with that. And even better when they had their little run at the beginning of the 2020s here. But yeah, Alex Medved's a guy. I mean, he really just is playing at a high level right now. He gets after the quarterback. He's been shedding blocks. And he really has taken his game to another level here the last couple of weeks. This defense, we gave the stats out Friday during the broadcast last week about just how good the defensive line's been, how good Medved's been, what they've done against opponents. They are just persistent. They come at you from different angles, and they get you out of your comfort zone, and they force you into mistakes. And if they don't get you in the backfield, they will force you into mistakes, because the secondary, one of the best, I think, in single A, is all over the place, and they can cover sideline to sideline. They can cover deep. They've got sneaky good speed to go deep with guys. I don't know that there's a weakness on this defense. I really don't. They disguise their coverage well. They bring pressure from different angles. They have every viable piece you need. And if, in order to get the pressure, you got to have the guys up front that are going to kind of open the holes up and basically bust through those gaps. I mean, you're talking about Kevin Mahoney up front pushing people out of the way. And if Medved doesn't get you, oh, here's Tyler Fuchs. Oh, here's Jack Miles. 2 guys who are going to be number 1 and 2 in terms of tackles in program history. So much talent. And Colton Carlson defensively, I don't think he gets enough credit because those guys up front have been so good. But Colton Carlson at an all-state level defensively, I think this year too. He's getting a vote from me, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and I think his defense flies under the radar because of how great he's been on the offensive front. 9 receiving and 7 rushing touchdowns, and that might be flip flopped on the year there for Mr. Carlson, and he's going to have records when all is said and done as well. Coming out of Laurel. Again, that's the 7 o'clock game from the Leonard E. Rich Athletic Complex, Spartan Stadium there. Lee Moan, J Moan on the call, audio only for that broadcast on Friday night. You will not have a broadcast Friday night for the Wilmington Greyhounds in District 10 as we wind up our coverage of our county teams. The Hounds have the number 1 seed, the 1, 2, and 3 all with a bye. The 4, 5 team in District 10 Class 1A. Cambridge Springs against Cochranton. They have essentially a pigtail game to get into the semifinals, which will be next week. I'm glad the Hounds played a Week 9 game. They played against Carson City, a good battle, kind of back and forth, just the Hounds always playing from a couple scores behind. They stayed in it, couldn't get the win last week. I think that was a good little test. Now with a week off to rest up and get ready here for the postseason. Should be a very winnable semifinal game, and then a rematch either against a Greenville team from the championship a year ago. They played them in week 0 already this year, or a Reynolds team that they absolutely took to the cleaners now for the third or fourth straight matchup is what you would expect to see for the Hounds. It's right out there in front of them on a silver platter again for more gold coming back to the home of the Greyhounds.
Yeah, and what a good run single A is. I mean, this, whoever wins single A in the WPIL, either, whether it's one of the top 2 favorites in Fort Cherry or Clairton, Wilmington, Bishop Guilfoyle is great. Westinghouse has been a complete disappointment here in the last few weeks. Didn't even win the City League title. So I don't know what factor they're going to have.
I think they're still going to be a factor, but
that's the scary thing. Like, we don't know who's on this team, and we don't know how good they are, but they still may be a factor in this whole thing. But Wilmington just has to handle its business in District 10, let teams, essentially come to them. I think we are going to get somewhere along the line. I think we're going to get a Wilmington Fort Cherry matchup, and man, oh man, a younger, young, and almost relatively inexperienced Wilmington team because of when they got knocked out last year in the playoffs and all those guys back against the gold standard of single A football pretty much in the state. I know that they don't have a state title, but, maybe next to the Bishop Guilfoyle in the last 2 or 3 years, it's been Fort Cherry. And Wilmington's got a chance to – I still firmly believe, James, that team is going to go to Cumberland Valley to play for the state championship. I think they will figure out a way to do that.
Chase Mitchelltree over 1,000 yards now on the season. He's the county's leading rusher and leading point scorer on the year as well with 20 total touchdowns. It is a tough road. So, I mean, it's late in front of them that it's probably going to be Wilmington, Greenville, which, again, Wilmington would definitely be the favorite. Then it would more than likely be a rematch against District 9's Port Allegheny that they played last year in that game. And Port Allegheny has a running back, Aiden Bliss. I mean, he's got as many touchdowns as Journey Brown did, it feels like, in his career. He just is... He averages 30 points a game. That sounds crazy for a basketball field, nevertheless on the football field. But that's a tough challenge, and then it is, at that point, would be the winner of District 7. So whether it is, likely a Fort Cherry or a Clairton as the favorites. That's a hefty road, but Wilmington's, again, a team, kind of like a Southside we were just talking about, Eric. When you can run the football effectively, you can slow down a game, or really speed up a game, I guess I should say, in terms of fewer plays being run. Rely on your defense. Wilmington's always got a very talented, strong defense. Wilmington matches up well with just about anybody who could end up in their path.
They really do, and they can be physical with just about anybody who's going to get in their path too. And they're going to see, these teams like Fort Cherry are, a run-heavy team, but they're so explosive. And Neshannock is explosive, and Laurel has explosive capabilities, and Clairton's defense is explosive, and their offense is, just as damn good as their defense is. Canavan can put up points. None of them do it the way Wilmington does it, and that is the patient, grind the clock out, limit your possessions, and just keep running the football and running the football and running the football. And they will just try to wear teams out. And if they have their way, they may, you never know how these things are going to go as far as, how, like if Clareton and Fort Cherry meet again, how physical is that game going to be? How banged up is that team going to be? Matt Sieg again, he hasn't been 100% the whole season. If he gets to that point and he's gone through this grind, how much is a little bit too much? And that team just doesn't get tired, Wilmington. They just keep pounding the football time after time again. It's a very, very aggravating team to play. And that, later we get, plays into their favor.
We need to take one quick break. When we come back, we want to talk about the other classifications really briefly and just some general news and announcements as we wrap things up here on this episode of Beyond the Scoreboard on the Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP. Congratulations to our September LCAP Team of the Month. The Lawrence County SportsNet is proud to honor Mohawk Boys Cross Country as the LCAP Team of the Month after winning their second consecutive undefeated section championship. Congratulations to coaches Jared Stratton and Cam Shermer and the Mohawk Boys Cross Country team, the LCAP Team of the Month. Lawrence County SportsNet is proud to honor Neshannock's Maddie Arrow as the September Red Zone Female Athlete of the Month for finishing as section runner-up in girls tennis, the doubles champion in the section, and qualifying for states in doubles. LC SportsNet is also proud to honor Neshannock's Rocco Baiuti as the September Male Athlete of the Month for finishing third in the WPIAL Golf Championships and qualifying for states. Congratulations and best of luck to Neshannock's Rocco Baiuti and Maddie Arrow, the September Red Zone Athletes of the Month. And back here on Beyond the Scoreboard, again, those LCAP Team of the Month and the Red Zone Athletes of the Month. Guess what? It's time again to be getting winners announced now for the month of October. So congratulations one last time to Rocco Baiuti, placed in states in golf. Maddie Arrow, big run for her as well throughout the tournaments. And, of course, to the Mohawk Cross Country team. They're still awaiting their chance coming up here with the state tournament, state finals here as well. Big shout out to all of them. Reminder that nominations are open at lcsportsnet.com/awards. You can put in your nomination for the October Red Zone Male and Female Athlete of the Month, as well as our October LCAP Team of the Month. We will make the announcement for those winners of the awards for the Team of the Month and Athletes of the Month during pregame of our playoff games coming on Friday night. So stay tuned for that and make sure you get those nominations in. Again, we will announce the winner during the pregame show on Friday night at all of our games. Again, we will have coverage of 4 of the 5 championship first-round playoff games for the WPIAL. We'll have full video coverage, free to watch for Neshannock traveling to Leechburg. We'll have NFHS video with a free audio feed as well. That's the Mohawk against Olsh game, as well as the Newcastle against Montour contest in 4A. And again, audio-only coverage for the Laurel against Jefferson Morgan game. Free video, by the way, again, on the Elwood City Sports Network with Brad and Thad. That is Elwood City against Keystone Oaks. And it is prudent, again, to remind everybody, Eric, of, basically, this is the third year of the WPIL. The rights go to the NFHS network first. So if there's any field, for example, that has an NFHS camera, automatically you cannot do a video broadcast no matter how much money you want to spend. You can't do an NFHS or you can't do a regular broadcast without going to NFHS only. So what we have done, we are in a package deal that we're permitted to do one free video broadcast on any given day, provided that there is no NFHS broadcast already going on. So while there's no cameras, for example, at Newcastle or at Laurel, the issue is there are other entities who want to do the game who are NFHS affiliated, and it's basically a first-come, first-serve thing. We were first-come, first-serve for Newcastle. That's why we're able to do that game for video. Somebody else beat us to it, essentially, literally by 2 seconds, to do the Laurel game. So that's why we are not permitted to do video for that, but we at least, yes, we'll still have audio coverage as we follow our teams from the County of Champions going towards the championship. So in the end, it comes down also to getting assistance from the great fans like you who are out there. You've been supporting the athletes, you've been supporting us. We greatly appreciate that. Any way that you can help support these athletes, we greatly appreciate it. It helps us get these games on the air. That's the main thing, is we want to get these games covered for our county athletes, and we know that our great sponsors in the area want to make sure that they can watch and listen to at least the games going on here during the postseason. So if you are interested in assisting in that, you see the Venmo here on the screen. If you're watching on our social media or on YouTube, that's one way to get in touch with us. Send us a message on any of our social media platforms. Send us an email, lcsportsnet@lcap.org. Anything you can do to help. We would also like to be able to help you into promoting your business as you help us promote the student athletes here in the area. All right, enough of that pitch. As I know, the baseball pitch going on. It's a 3-game series now between the Jays and the Dodgers. Eric, let me pick your brain at that one real quick while we get ready to wrap things up. Who wins in these last 3 games to take home the World Series?
Jays in 6.
There you go. Jays are going to get the next 2, he says, and take care of business on that one. Quick, easy answer. I like it. The other point of business that I want to make sure we announce, I want to give a shout out to Wilmington Boys Soccer. Great season for them. They ended up losing in the championship last night by a final score of 1-0 against Mercyhurst Prep. Great season for them. Unfortunately came to an end. Wilmington Girls Soccer, in their co-op with Neshannock as well, they made it to the Class 2A semifinals, lost to Fort LaBeouf on Monday night, but one of the best seasons in Wilmington Girls history. Talk about best in history. We don't know for sure, but it's definitely the first time in at least a couple of decades that Wilmington Girls Volleyball is playing in a District 10 championship. They were a straight set victor over Lakeview last night, so they were playing a championship on Thursday night. So congratulations to the Hounds in District 10 in these fall sports, getting the job done, doing some great things there. And again, mentioned just a moment ago, Mohawk Boys Cross Country and Elwood City Boys Cross Country. Both teams have qualified for the state tournament out of the WPIL, and in District 10, again, Wilmington Cross Country also has qualified for the state finals as well. So lots of great stuff going in all the sports here across the County of Champions. Want to talk about the other 3 classifications real quick for the football tournament here. Begins on Friday, Eric. Nothing for 6A this week. They're completely off. 5A and 3A get started on Friday night. A couple of quick things that you've noticed or that stuck out to you in terms of these brackets being released, or just in terms of good matchups that you're expecting to be seeing.
Yeah, in 6A, if you want to start there first, I think everybody assumes this is going to be the Pitt Central Catholic Invitational. Probably is, but I really want to see what North Allegheny's mindset is, because they were just taken apart by Pine Richland a couple weeks ago in a rivalry game, and how they bounce back from that. Probably going to get them in Central Catholic again. That seems like that's always been the collision course every year. Something, I like the idea, at least in theory, of WPIL going back to 4 classes just to make it more competitive. Because 6A just doesn't have the horses. Like, it just doesn't have the teams in there to challenge, unless you get a superhuman team like North Allegheny was a couple years ago. But Pitt Central, North Allegheny, probably again. Pine Richland, Peters Township would be great in 5A. I could see Woodland Hills maybe making a bit of a surprise run to the finals in 5A. Bethel Park and Peters would be interesting in round 2. Bethel is a pretty good offense. They love to run the ball with Dave Dennison. Had a chance to watch them a little bit. Upper St. Clair and Plum. Upper St. Clair, not sure that they're what they were a season ago when a lot of people expected them to make a run at the state title, but that's a really sneaky seed that's there on the lower half of the bracket. So keep an eye on them, but I think Peters and Pine Richland there, and Pine Richland just has too much talent, and it's going to be a heck of an end for Nolan DeLucia, but Pine Richland just is so vastly talented. But again, would not be stunned if Woodland Hills and Snoop get in the final scoop rather get in the final against them too, because this could be a situation where one guy changes the whole thing, and maybe has a big night and upsets somebody down the stretch. And you go down to 3-3. I mean, Avonworth has been good all year long. They've been the team to beat in 3A. Probably going to stay that way too. I can't see the Lopes losing to anybody really. Elizabeth Forward could maybe give them a rumble in the semifinals, and Amani will probably meet them in the final. But Avonworth, just their defense is too good. Their offense is actually really, really, really good too. Interesting game if they get Beaver in round two in a 1-9 matchup. But I would probably peg Amani and Avonworth on a collision course there.
Well, there you go. You heard it right from the mouth of Sir Eric Thomas of what to expect for the WPIAL playoffs coming up here. Again, they all begin on Friday night, except for the Class 6A tournament. The semifinals not until next week. Only 4 teams making it into the postseason. Real quick, across the state, Eric, any big shakeups that you've seen in the state rankings, or any late upsets that have messed up seeding in any tournaments? So anything of note of that regard?
No, I mean, Harrisburg struggled. They finished their season undefeated last weekend, regular season. They're still number one in 6A, but all eyes are pointing to LaSalle, St. Joe's Prep round two. That'll come up for the Catholic League title. And then one of those two teams will go on to, one of those teams is not going to really to the state tournament, because they're going to have to play a District 12 title game after that. And will not get through. So this could be the year that St. Joe's Prep's finally done. We'll find out here against LaSalle. The second time LaSalle's still the number 2 team in 6A. Probably, I'm sticking by what I said back in August. We're going to get a rematch of week 0 with Central Catholic and LaSalle in 6A. That's going to be a nice surprise for teams and fans, I should say, because everybody just pencils St. Joe's Prep in, and you need generational talent and generational team. LaSalle's got it this year. And LaSalle Harrisburg could get really, really interesting in the state semi too. That could be something or state final. That could be something to keep an eye on too, because they'll split. Harrisburg will go to the west, and they'll take on probably the WPIL winner in the state semis, and LaSalle will get whoever's out of District 11 in the state semis, likely out of District 11. Not much else really. I mean, it's been kind of quiet, and it's been sort of complacent with the state rankings this year. We didn't mention it, but Laurel did move up a spot in single A, and that's good for them. Newcastle's still not ranked, but only one WPL team in 4A is ranked, and that's McKeesport. And a lot to kind of be decided. A lot of good teams across the state that in the 5A class that might give Pine Richland a run at some point. I don't think District 3 is as strong as it's been last year. I would still probably expect Bishop McDevitt to get through that and get Pine Richland again in a state semifinal. Not the same McDevitt team that's been there the last couple of years, though. So that might end up being Pine Richlands to lose at some point. But it's actually been a pretty complacent season. I mean, most of these top fives have not changed, and just a matter of like if a team goes from like 4 to 5 or 3 to 4 or something like that. But most of the top 5 teams have not changed, and it's been relatively stagnant. And that's one of the issues with 6A. I mean, when it's like this, and these teams don't have much in the way of competition in some of the conferences and all that, you get these rankings that are pretty flat throughout the whole season. And then when we get to the playoffs now is when we kind of waited 10 weeks to get to this point, and now we find out who's who, and we get the matchups that we all want. But all eyes are going to be on that LaSalle St. Joe's Prep in 6A coming up.
One final thought. We may have seen the play of the year. I mean, for crying out loud, it made it on to Pat McAfee's show, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it was a kicker from Plum making the play. But did you see that end of year or end of the game play to get Plum into the playoffs? A game-winning field goal attempt as time is expiring, Eric. It's blocked. The kicker picks it up, and it's a rugby scrum for about 12 yards into the end zone. The pile keeps moving, and he scores the winning touchdown. I've never seen anything like it. How about that's twice now in the last couple of years that Penn Hills has lost on a last-second field goal that they've blocked, but then was scooped up by the offensive return for a touchdown. I didn't even think about that until right now. But, I mean, congrats to Plum for getting into playoffs, but how crazy is that? Deja vu. It's happened again to the Indians.
Does the kicker get like $500,000, or is that just on game day?
Well, it didn't go through the upright, so I don't know. Does he? Does
I
he
don't care. Does he
get?
still get $500,000 because he deserves it after that? Yeah, that was wild. I caught that late on Friday night. And I just was like, what? Somebody sent it to me, and I looked at it. And I'm like, there's no way this happened, and there it was. But good to see Pat giving recognition to the hometown and some of the guys. Of course, the kicker, that he's got to point out, but definitely a Play of the Year nominee. That's when SportsCenter runs their end of the year highlight package amidst all the LeBron James garbage that'll be in there because they just fought over the NBA. That play will be in that montage, I'm sure.
And no inadvertent whistle either on the field.
Yeah, don't open that can of worms up.
Fair enough. Well, with that, we will wrap things up again. You can find Eric Thomas and Tim Continenza at Taggart Stadium at Lindy Laura Field for that big 3-6 matchup between the Canes and Montour. That's NFHS video with free audio. Same scenario at Bessemer as Mohawk hosts Olsh in the two-way competition with our friends from Westminster College. Big thanks to Tom and Ben for helping us out with that one. You can check that out again. NFHS video, free audio. Audio only for Lee and Jay Moan for the Laurel game in Class 1A against Jefferson Morgan. And free video broadcast, Elwood City hosting Keystone Oaks. That's with ECS. And then in Class 1A, we'll have the coverage, myself and Tyler Aaron, for the Neshannock and Leechburg game at Veterans Memorial Stadium in Leechburg. Thanks for tuning in. Live, archive, however you get your podcasts, or, of course, on our social media channels as well. For Eric Thomas, I'm James Dotson. Stay tuned. Lots of fun Friday night. 4 games on the docket. We must be crazy, but we love every minute of it. We hope you do.